All right, so I've got some breaking news for you. At 4 p.m., just after the close, we got a YOLO update from Roaring Kitty showing that he has added 4 million shares to his position, but that he has sold his calls. Now, if you watched my video earlier, you know that I was expecting that we would see this type of update because we could see on the option chain that the open interest in the June 21st $20 strike price calls had declined below the total position that he had. So I knew that he had sold, but I didn't know how much he had sold. Evidently, he sold the entire position. So let me show you what his P&L is looking like right now. The market has reacted a little bit to this news. I was expecting to get a YOLO update today because we hadn't had one since Monday, and so I sort of thought that one was coming, and especially given the fact that yesterday we were seeing the selling in that $20 strike price call, I knew that something was happening. So this is the post here. He's holding now 9,001,000 shares with an average price paid of $23.41. Now, this is really interesting that it's $23.41 because if you recall from his last post, he was holding 5 million shares at an average price of $21.27. So his cost basis has gone up. Now, he was holding these options right here at the $20 strike price, but instead of exercising these options, what he ended up doing was he sold them on the market for a profit, not a huge profit, but relatively speaking, compared to how big the profit was previously. So he sold them certainly for a profit, and he used that profit to turn around and buy what appears to be 4 million shares right on the open market, which is why his cost basis has gone up because he was buying those 4 million shares at a higher price. So each time he was adding, his cost basis came up a little bit. So now he owns 9 million shares, but this is kind of interesting because as we know today, we were supposed to have a shareholder meeting at 10 a.m. Central Time, 11 a.m. Eastern, but it was postponed because the server crashed. Now, it kind of boggles my mind how they didn't prepare for this because there were 600,000 people streaming Roaring Kitty's live stream on YouTube last Friday. Now, probably there wouldn't be that many people that would tune in for an earning or for a shareholder meeting, but at the same time, given all the hype and interest around GameStop, you would think that they would have expected a good number and they would have been prepared. Evidently not. I'm not sure how well that reflects on a company that, is kind of trying to shake off the image of being a, brick and mortar business that isn't good with technology. But in any case, regardless of that, the shareholder meeting was postponed. And so we don't know when it's going to be rescheduled for. But I was sitting here at 4 p.m. at the close waiting to see if we were going to get this update. So what I was doing was I was refreshing this page, every couple of minutes. And then all of a sudden I saw GameStop start spiking. And I did take a trade on GameStop. I'm going to share that in my recap that I'll upload later today. So I actually took trades on it earlier today, and I took another trade right in here. But actually, this kind of was a non-event, which, to be honest, surprises me. But you know what? I'll tell you why it's a non-event. It's a non-event because there's no longer a time catalyst. And actually, I think that this is really revealing because we go back into this P&L here and, the story here of, all right, June 2nd, we get this big P&L, he's got $200 million account and he's got 5 million shares plus 120,000 calls that expire in a couple of weeks. Holy smokes, right? We're all super excited. The stock goes crazy. All of a sudden, his account goes from 200 million to 289 million to 586 million. And in fact, at one point, I calculated that it would have been up probably close to 900 million, which is absolutely insane. And then, of course, the company puts out terrible news, right? They put out this big earnings miss, and they do the 75 million share offering, and the price drops. So the fact that he's sold, I think this sort of indicates that things didn't really go according to plan, because nobody wants to be up 900 million and then come down to up 68 million more or less, right? 700 million to 68 million. So it's a big drop. I think that if he had what I was wondering was if he was going to sell these calls and buy a different strike price or a different expiration. So some people were talking about, well, look at the look at the options that expire tomorrow, right? Friday. They've got a ton of volume. 62,000 contracts traded with only 29,000 of open interest on the June 14th $30 strike price. You've got a lot of volume here on the $35 strike. And then, you go out next week, you go out the week after that, and there's a decent amount of volume. In fact, if you go out here and you go all the way up to the $128 strike, you've got a good amount of volume up there as well. So, some people are like, who knows something here? And I think at the end of the day, what you have with 28,000 contracts traded at 4 to 5 cents a contract is YOLO trading. You're right? I mean, look, you could put 200 million on this and you probably lose it all. But maybe, just maybe, you become a billionaire. So anyway, some people are doing some YOLO trades there, but not Roaring Kitty. So the fact that Roaring Kitty didn't establish a new options trade, the fact that he didn't exercise, the fact that he sold and is now just added to his position, he's got 9 million shares at $23 a share. All right, so he's obviously up. The last price here was 29. So he's now up 51 million on this position, which is huge. And his account is at 268 million. And if we recall, it was at 210 at the beginning of this sort of move. So his account right now, is certainly up. But like I said, I think the fact that he is sort of having to sell these, had to sell the 120,000 calls at 25% or, whatever the percentage is of their kind of peak value speaks to the fact that this did not go according to plan. He wasn't expecting Ryan Cohen to, dump the early earnings miss and also the shelf registration. And, one thing that I've said several times is that when you think about who's profited the most from this entire move, it's GameStop. And one thing that feels a little sad to me is that GameStop, I feel like, owes a huge debt of gratitude to retail traders who were buying the stock up. Now, they were buying the stock up because Roaring Kitty, among a few others, Michael Burry and some other investors, noticed that the stock had a overly bearish sentiment and an insane degree of short interest back in 2020, right? And so that created the squeeze. So in some ways, they have the short sellers who are trying to bury the stock to thank because they got greedy and it blew up on them. But at this point, with Roaring Kitty making, his big position and all the retail traders getting back into it, this move, I don't think was really created necessarily by high short interest, because that doesn't seem to be the case. It's more of the meme social media hype around it. And they cashed in on that. And the only reason I don't love that is because it feels like they kind of took retail traders' positive sentiment and just went cha-ching, cha-ching, turned it into cash for the company. And look, if they hadn't sold 120 million shares on the open market over the last month, I can only imagine where the stock would be. It might actually be at $50, $60 a share. It might be at $80 a share, right? So, they kind of crushed Roaring Kitty's position, to be honest, right? He takes a big position. He's got, he's really optimistic about it. They crushed retail traders' positions who bought these calls. Anyone who bought the strike price with Roaring Kitty or near around that, unfortunately, so we can look at what that strike price was trading at here. So it was the June 21st $20 strike. So $9.25, $9.30 right now, which, is not terrible. He was in at 567. So it is actually still up. It's up today. The stock's up 14%, 12% right now. Yesterday, of course, it was down 12% or 14%. So we have rallied off the low. But I think that this does speak to the fact that this did not really go according to plan. And the fact that the market isn't reacting really positively to him selling the options and turning it into a 9 million share position, I guess is kind of... I don't know. So maybe GameStop is going to kind of go out of popularity for a little bit. The other thing worth noting is that because they've just diluted the value of the stock by selling 120 million shares, the float has gone up from about 300 million shares to 420. So owning 9 million shares is a huge position. There's no doubt about it. But they diluted the value of every shareholder by, 25% or whatever it is. So Roaring Kitty also, kind of loses out on that. It's just really, it's kind of a shame. It's too bad. But again, look, Roaring Kitty has still done incredibly well. 268 million. He's still holding the position, and now there's no time expiration that he's got to do something. But that I think takes away some of the hype and excitement, because now it's like, oh, all right, well, I guess we'll just get periodic YOLO updates and we can all see what the stock is doing. It was the options expiration that I think created this, like, something's going to happen in the next week. And now he's closed out those options. He hasn't had new ones. He certainly could, but he hasn't at this point. So now it's kind of like, well, I guess, I guess GameStop is back off my radar. I don't know. I'm kind of like, whatever. I'm a day trader, so I trade volatility. We had some volatility today that gave me some opportunities to trade it. I was looking forward to the shareholder meeting because I was hoping that would give us some nice trades. But anyways, it got postponed. And realistically, it's probably going to be a non-event meeting. But you never know. They might make some. Hopefully they'll talk about what they're going to do with all this cash they now have. So, anyways, I'll have some more episodes coming up in the coming days and weeks about GameStop, I'm sure. So and if you missed some of the episodes that I've uploaded in the last few days about the 2024 thesis or about naked short selling, feel free to check those out. Of course, they're right here on the channel. And make sure you hit that subscribe button. I hope you hit the thumbs up. And I'll see you for the next episode real soon. I've got a recap coming a little bit later tonight, so you could stay tuned for that. Thanks as always for tuning in. I'll remind you as always that trading is risky. My results aren't typical, so manage your risk, take it slow. And I'll see you guys, Warrior Pro members, live streaming tomorrow morning.